everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a speed through of the Art Joy of Sharing Livestream channel show from Thursday, July 19th. And what we were doing on the show today was to make masterboards. What is a masterboard? It is a background, like a multi-layered mixed media background that you then cut into smaller pieces to make any sort of project, like a card or an ATC, cover a box with it, make a bag topper with it, cover a journal, anything like that. You can use it inside your journal as a background and then, go ahead and put some focal images on it. And so that's what Peg and I were making today on the show. So I decided to try out some acrylic on Yupo paper to start out with, and I am using Golden High Flow acrylic paint, which is a highly pigmented paint, but it's very thin and runny. And on the Yupo paper, which is a non-porous surface because it's just kind of like plastic paper basically, it gives you a long time to work. So you can scratch words into it, you can make marks in it, and also something that's kind of unique that you can do is to remove some of the paint through a stencil, or just if you decide you don't like that color, using alcohol. So I used some of the stencils. The stencils I'm using today for the most part are Stencil Girls July Stencil Club stencils, and they're designed to look like tiles, like, old tiles. And I saw some of these recently in Dublin at Christchurch. All the floor was done with all these handmade terracotta tiles that looked kind of like these designs. Some of them did. I mean, not all of them, but I definitely saw stuff like this. So when I opened my Stencil Club package, I was excited because I saw these things that I had just seen in Dublin. So that's what I'm using today. I threw in a couple other stencils. All the products that I'm using will be linked in the description box below. So anyway, you can take some alcohol and you can rub through the stencil and remove some of the paint right off the Yupo. That's something that's unique to Yupo. Most people do watercolors or alcohol inks on Yupo. Alcohol inks are what I see the most when people are using this type of a paper. But I decided to use acrylics on it today, so that's what I did. So then my second masterboard was made on 140-pound hot press watercolor paper, which is a smooth, porous surface. And I'm using my 2-inch brayer to apply paint. And this time I'm using the Decoart fluid paints. And I like to use my 6x6 gel plate as a palette for my brayer because it really makes a nice smooth layer of paint on my brayer as opposed to doing it on a hard surface. So that's what I've been doing with my 6x6. I just leave it out now. I don't even put it away, and I use it as a palette for my brayers. Another thing that you can do if you don't want to use a brayer is to scratch some paint on or scrape some paint on using an old credit card or hotel key card. And I was talking about that, so I decided to apply some of my paint like that. I'm using a very warm, bright colorway on this one, so I decided to calm it down a little bit with some titanium white over the top, and that made it a little bit more reasonable because it was giving me a sunburn. It was really bright. And then I decided to just make some rectangular shapes by using one of my gel plates, which this is the 3x5 rectangle, and I've made acrylic blocks by just getting a sheet of acrylic at, or plexiglass basically is what they call it, at the home store, and then cut it up to different sizes. So I can use this one kind of like a stamp and make these rectangular colored shapes on my masterboard, which is just adding another layer of interest. Basically, all you do is you just start with a color set that you like, that you think goes together, and then start building up on top of it. You can build it with stamps, you can build it with gel plates, you can build it with collage, you can build it with stamping, you can paint on there with some paints or drips or whatever. I mean, it's just creating a mixed media background to then use as another project, like to cut it up and use it as another project. So I'm sure you've seen this concept before. That's just what Peg and I decided to do today. Decided to bring a little bit of a darker warm color. This is quinacridone or quinacridone, however you say it. Different people say it different ways. The violet. So I decided to bring that in with some of this the 9x12 stencil this month from Stencil Girl Club, and put some of those on. But then they were really stark. They were harsh on there. So then I had to do something about that. But before I did that, I used the 6x6 stencil, which is probably my favorite one from this month. And I'd used it in gold. I did some gold over the top, and I thought that that would balance out those darker designs on there, but it didn't have quite the effect that I wanted. It's still really cool, but it didn't have quite the effect that I wanted. Some of the questions that people ask: how do you know when you're done? How do you know when you're done? That's mixed media in general. If you're putting all these layers on and it's just going on and on, how do you know when you're done? Well, I'll tell you how you know. It's when you're happy. When you think it looks the way that you imagined that it would look, then you're done. And in this case, I thought I needed to brayer some more colors on there. I thought I needed to bring some of that bright red back, because I just really had these crazy dark violet pieces on there that were bothering me. It wasn't cohesive. And then I decided to do some real light, almost lacy stenciling with that same circular design in some, it's not white, it's buff titanium or whatever you're calling it this week. It's kind of an off-white, because I thought that went better with the gold, to try to unify everything and not make it so crazy, because it was just those violet ones were just crazy. So then I did some stamping. I think, pretty sure I did some stamping after that for another layer, but you just keep going until you're done. You just, at some point, you know you're done, and that's when you finish. Yeah, I did some stamping with acrylic paint. I had done this stamp in the background already, but it was kind of covered up by all those layers, so I brought it back with some more of that red. It's a Harlequin stamp. And then I did some script on there, and I think some dots with stamps with ink. And then this one was done. So at some point I'll be cutting these up and making them into cards, or covering a journal, or I don't know what all I'm going to do, but it'll be fun. So thanks for watching. If you want to see the full live stream, it's in the description box below, the link. And of course, remember to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment so I know you were here, subscribe if you haven't already. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, I forgot. I needed to add this part. When you're using the Yupo paper with acrylic, you do need to give it a coat of sealant, because this does flake off eventually. I mean, if you scratched it or something, or if you put more alcohol on top of it and rubbed it off, it would still come off. It's a plastic. So I put 2 coats of fluid matte medium over the top of that, just to make it a little bit more sturdy, just in case. And there are my 2 masterboards from today. Bye-bye.